Welcome to the Crucible with Jeff Marshall. If you haven't seen us before, you're in for a phenomenal episode today. My guest today is the person you want in the room when the stakes are high, the story matters, and the spotlight is blinding. Meg, I'm gonna embarrass you for a moment and read through your bio.
This sounds terribly awkward.
I know.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
And every guest has to sit through it. So
great.
But if you'll allow me, you'll give me that grace for a moment.
Of course.
Let me introduce you to the audience members that don't know you well. So from organizational mergers and CEO transitions to messaging major events for national associations, to the media engagement for clients in tourism, philanthropy, and arts and culture, Meg Kane's professional expertise is in high impact and high pressure projects. And that doesn't even touch on our previous role as the co-lead of strategic communications for the 2015 World Meeting of Families and the visit of Pope Francis to Philadelphia. Today, Meg serves as the host city executive CEO for Philadelphia Soccer 2026, the nonprofit entity which successfully won the city of Philadelphia's bid to host matches for FIFA World Cup 26. Since joining the effort in 2019, Meg has served as the liaison between the city of Philadelphia, key partners and venues, and FIFA, focusing on the development of the city's narrative case for hosting and the delivery of all technical responses. Now, as host city executive and CEO, Meg leads the operationalization of the local organizing committee, which is responsible for ensuring the successful hosting of World Cup matches at Lincoln Financial Field, a 40-day fan fest, and welcoming more than 500,000 visitors to Philadelphia in the summer of 2026. Along with that, because one job's not enough, Meg is the president and CEO of Signature 57, a strategic communications firm with special focus on hospitality, tourism, large event strategy, as well as arts and culture. Since launching in 2021, Signature 57 has developed a strong reputation for strategy, sequencing, stakeholder relations, and storytelling. Its clients include Visit Philadelphia, Mural Arts Philadelphia, Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance, Heights Philadelphia, Philadelphia Visitor Center Corporation, and the Please Touch Museum, just to name a few. A trusted partner to clients in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., Meg holds a BA from LaSalle University and a master's in public relations, crisis communication, and political rhetoric from the University of Maryland at College Park. She is the former vice chair of the Board of Trustees for LaSalle University, where she served a 10-year term until 2022. In 2023, she was awarded the prestigious John J. Finley Medal for Outstanding Alumni Service to LaSalle University. Meg is also a recipient of the, I don't know if I'm gonna say this right.
Okay.
Of the Benemerenti,
Yes.
Okay, the Benemerenti Medal from Pope Francis 2016, a 2023 Above and Beyond Award recipient by City and State, and has been named to the Philadelphia Business Journal's Power 100. She's a narrative strategist, a civil leader, and today we'll talk about a moment where it all could have gone another way, her Crucible moment. This is Meg Kane, and this is the Crucible. Hi, Meg.
Hi, thank you.
Yep. It's
Again,
a
it's so awkward to listen to.
I know, I get it. It's because I was saying this to someone, when someone is reading your bio, you're still in whatever work it is you're doing.
Right.
And so it's really awkward to hear someone just ramble on and on about you. But it's necessary for this show in particular.
Sure.
Because as I mentioned, the guests that know you, or the folks who are watching that know you, they know all the great stuff you've done. And some of them, what happens when you have success is people put you on a pedestal that you never even asked to be on. You're like, I'm just doing this work. And what happens then is it kind of dehumanizes successful people a little bit. And so what we wanted to do was put you on that same pedestal for a moment and then allow you to bring the humanity into your story with a Crucible moment. And so that's why we're here today, so we can kind of get right into it, and you could tell us about a Crucible moment of your own. And
Sure. No, it's a great concept, and what a great question. Before we sat down, there are multiple Crucible moments in life. It's almost hard to choose one. And I found myself really struggling with that because I find myself right now even in the midst of a Crucible moment. But I think probably from my life standpoint, professional standpoint, personal standpoint, you know, you read this bio, and as you were reading it, I thought, okay, this is the story I'm going to tell, which is I was actually fired from a public relations job when I was 28 years old.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, as a high achiever, an A-type personality, you know, I had a master's degree, I'd been commencement speaker, at my university, at my high school, right? And to be fired, right, was a gut punch.
Yeah.
And I remember it shaking. Well, I mean, you're shaking because all of a sudden it's like, how do I pay my bills? Like I'm 28 years old, I have an apartment, I'm not moving home. How am I going to figure this out? That's your first thing. But as you go through the process of really thinking about how did this happen? What did I do? What is my role in this, right? Because it's also very easy to place blame immediately, like on the employer. And at the time, you know, there's anger, there's frustration, there's fear, there's all of this emotion that you don't expect to come. And I think about that because it shook my identity in such a real way, to the point that even as you read this, it feels like the ultimate imposter story to me, because I'm 44, but I can still, every morning I look in the mirror and I think about that, right? You think about that moment. I can close my eyes and remember being called into the office, right? I can remember the conversation. You remember almost the heat, right? That takes over your body, like, and the way you are trying to maintain a level of emotion and professionalism, and you literally have to control the desire to run out of the room. And, you know, it was an incredible, I mean, even to this day, like I can conjure that feeling, right? And so when you read all of this, it doesn't feel real sometimes, because I still think about that moment as being so defining to who I am. And certainly being a pivot moment in such a critical way.
Wow. It's, you know, it's the wild part was hearing you describe the moment. Like when you said you could feel the heat, like that was so, that literally took me to that. Like whenever you're in a situation, a high nerve situation, that is literally what happens, is that heat takes over your body. So even as you were describing it, I could tell it's like, this is, like you said, it lives rent free in your head forever.
Absolutely.
Whoever did it is probably long past this moment, and now like every day you look in the mirror, you're
right, and you think about that. And I think what's really important, I think, you know, for me, again, like there was the emotion of it, and there was a long time where the anger fuels, right? Like you wanna, I'm gonna prove everybody wrong, right? There's this anger that drives you. But ultimately, when you get some distance, you also start to recognize your own role in how that played out, right? And how you gave your agency and your power away in making a decision that you should have, like, making your employer make the decision for you. Like that, to me, I look at it and it's, you know, I can be very honest about that. And could things have been handled better, differently? There's a million situations where that happens. But it made me a much more empathetic manager and leader. It also made me keenly aware of kind of this moment that happens in careers around 27, 28, 29, where you have some experience, but you think you have more experience than you actually do, right? Like where you actually think like, oh, I know this. And you do not, right? Like plot twist, you don't. And I think for me, you know, as I've grown and as my career evolved, I think about that frequently.
Yeah.
And I think it's been really instructive in terms of how I've managed other people and how I've been able to see others coming up on that collision and being able to either head off the collision for them, to say, listen, you don't know this about me, but here's what happened when I was at this moment in your career, and I'm going to tell you, if we keep going down this path, like, let me tell you how that story ends.
Yeah.
Right? Because, and it's been interesting because it's either compelled people to make that change on their own because they're ready, right? Because sometimes you do have to move on from organizations, from opportunities, from relationships. You have to do it for you, right? You need a change. You feel maybe you've reached a ceiling of growth. Maybe you've reached a ceiling of learning. But in your 20s, you don't necessarily know that. Right? Yeah. Like you don't know that. And that's in your relationships, that's in, work. And so when I think about that, it took me a really long time to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? Like because when you look in the mirror, like that's all you see.
This is, yes.
It's all you see.
You only see your shortcomings.
Correct. You only see that moment.
Yeah.
And it was that for me was like, it took me years.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me 3 years to be able to even talk about what happened. Yeah. That I was to be as blunt about it, to be as forthcoming about it. And what ended up being the reason that I did it was I was asked to give a speech at LaSalle University, and to speak to the graduating seniors who were the most outstanding in their departments. Yeah. Right? So they are each of them is the A+ type A student that's graduating, right? And from each of these departments, whether it's communications, mathematics, English, it's the best of all the departments. And their parents are there. And I remember really struggling with what to say. And I thought, one of the things I wish somebody had told me when I was 22 was that you're gonna need resilience.
Yeah.
Because it's going to come.
It's the most important thing.
It's the most important thing. That's right. And that this is a great moment, but there's going to be tougher moments. And you have to really figure out, you have to make sure that your identity and how you view yourself isn't tied to that success. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really...
I still struggle with that.
100%.
All of us do.
100%.
Like that bio is like, I think about it and it's like, man, you heard the conversation I was having with my boyfriend last night. These are two very different people you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because there's still the struggle on, am I doing this right? Am I good enough? Am I handling this right? Yeah. I mean, there is just... It is the part that you have to continually process, right? Because you can get back into that moment really fast.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Really fast.
I've had these moments over and over again. So it's interesting. We have so many similarities. There's the first time I spoke about my Crucible moment in public was at a university in a room full of students, on a stage full of students, and I was like, this is the message that they need to hear in this moment. So I love that. The other interesting thought I had was you learn, I think as you get older and more experienced, you start to recognize like how much you don't know, and you're okay with it. And some you're like, I don't know how to do this thing. I can find someone else who knows how to do it. Right. But when you're younger and like you said, you've been high achieving, your assumption is you know everything. And it's really weird that the imposter syndrome kicks in after you have had some experience.
Correct. That's exactly right.
It would really be helpful.
Right. It would have been better at 18.
Exactly.
Right. I would have preferred it at 18 or 22 or 28. And interestingly, when I was moving last year, and again, it's the things you don't realize you're doing that at the time that come back and you're like, why do I have this? Like, I had saved all of my performance reviews from where I was let go from. And I sat and I read them. I'm 44. I was reading performance reviews of when I was 26, right? 27. And just as I was when I read them the first time, I recognized all the shortcomings. They're still there, right? I realize they're part of my like persona, right? All of like what are the fatal flaws in this? But I also read them and realized that like I could have seen what was coming if I had been more open, vulnerable, and self-aware.
Yeah.
Right? And I think to some extent that's probably it's the self-awareness that is the piece that I carry with me now, and maybe to the point of overthinking, right? Overly self-aware of, my own performance in roles. But it's one of those things where the key pieces of it for me was that how to let go of the anger about it happening, and also how to take responsibility and accountability, because looking back, I could have been, I know there are things that I could have and should have done differently. And so, you have to come to a place of forgiveness, but it's the forgiveness of self. And also recognizing that some of the mistakes that you're making are because you're 28 and you're supposed to make mistakes.
And to your earlier point that you can recover from mistakes.
Absolutely.
But I say, to folks that, sometimes your accountability is a really hard thing, especially when you're young.
Sure.
Full of pride. And I say to sometimes I'm like, you're the bump in the road. Like sometimes it's you.
Right.
You're the bump in the road that's causing the issue.
Right, exactly. You are the pothole.
Yeah, you're the pothole.
Right.
And the car is getting wrecked every
That's
time.
right. Every time the wheel is gonna be broken.
I can, I feel all of that. And what I loved about what you were saying too is, because I found this in my own story, the areas where I've had, failures or crucible moments, when I think about how I lead others or how I work with others, that empathy really it's ingrained in me at this point. It's like if someone messes up, my immediate response isn't like, that's it. Right. It's like, how can I help you through it? But I also know, to your point, like some of the signs to look for, right?
Yeah.
Whether someone can like receive that information and what they can do with it. And I think, that was part of why we wanted to bring stories like this to the forefront, is because I think, a little bit of transparency goes a long way, and it allows a 28-year-old Meg to be able to come into, their current manager and say, hey, I don't know how to do this, or I'm messing up on this, instead of just like ducking their head and acting
right,
like
hoping nobody notices,
happening.
because let me tell you, they notice, right? Like that, and I always come back to this idea about the fact that this is really, as I was remembering the story of what triggered the speech to the students, it was tied to the fact, and I mean, this is probably like the biggest example, but I always tell people that my dirty secret as a female leader is that I couldn't get through Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In, the book. Like I stopped on page 78 because I was like, I'm done. Like this is, like I can't handle this. Like this is way too, like I found the book to be a little bit preachy and a little condescending, and it was very easy to be leaning in, right? When I was worried about paying my rent, and like she was a multimillionaire whose husband was also a multimillionaire, brilliant, leader. And while I appreciated what the lessons were meant to be, I just couldn't get through the book. And I always said, like, as a woman, like, you weren't allowed to say that at the time that book came out, right? I mean, like, you had to, it was like, that was supposed to be like on the nightstand. Yeah. It was like, that's what, like, we're required reading. And like, I still like have the book, and it is still dog-eared at page 78, like where it put down. But the reason I bring that up is because I think this is why second chances are so important. I read option B that she wrote with Adam Grant after her husband Dave died. Wow. And the vulnerability, the acknowledgement of that pain, the effect of the loss and the suddenness of the loss, coupled with, I think Adam Grant's an amazing researcher from the University of Pennsylvania, and coupled with that level of scholarly reflection, that for me made the book, like, that option B was about my journey.
Yeah.
Right? If option A isn't available, what is option B?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's, and that's, I think, the part about the resiliency, right? Like, option A isn't always going to be available to you, right? So, like, how do you take that and be prepared for what option B is?
Yeah.
And be willing to take it, right? The joke among all of my anybody that's ever worked for me is that when they've been expecting a baby, I've had many women that were expecting children, is that the voice that their children hear in utero is always me saying, "Don't let the great be the enemy of the good," right? Because that's my fatal flaw, like, right? That's mine. And the self-awareness is like, I know that.
Yeah.
Bite off more than you can chew, take on a little bit too much, and then like, am I under-delivering, right? And sometimes the good is, you got to get to the good, right? And get something on paper or get something done, even if it's, and option B was really about, that, right? And how do you really, make sure that you aren't so rocked by the fact that, like, the plan goes awry, that you can't find your way through, because, like, the plan is going to go awry.
100%.
Like, in anything you do.
This is why we refer to things like when we talk about North Stars, or in leadership. I think one of the phrases is, and I've used this phrase often. It's when I'm talking to managers and I say, well, leaders use a compass and managers use a map. Right? The map is one way. Like, the compass is like, I'm going west.
Correct.
Right? There's 1,000 ways to get from the East Coast to the West Coast. And sometimes the road you want to go down is closed. And you got to find another way. But as long as you're going west.
My friend Nikki Nabasny has a higher ed consultancy in Chicago called Beleza Advisors. It's named after her grandparents' boat. They sailed across the Pacific by compass. Right? I mean, and her grandmother charted.
Wow.
Right? And so the idea is the directionality of that, which is, of course, to me, as somebody who loves storytelling, I'm like, oh my God, this is so great.
It's a great story.
I'm like, this is a great story. I love it. So for me, but I think about that a lot, like the courage it takes to use the compass and not the map.
Yeah.
And I'm not all the way there on just leaning into the compass. I like Google Maps a lot. Waze is saving me a couple minutes here and there, which is always helpful.
I'm sure there's a couple people in this room that will be out on the deck, like,
absolutely,
trying to get cell service in the middle of the ocean.
Totally,
like, we're too far out.
Yeah, we're a little too far out for that. But those are, but I think you're so right. Like, in terms of that compass, right? That directionality, and again, it is so much about resiliency. And I think that's the part for me as I look over my career, I look over my life, there's incredible moments of where you have to just go one foot in front of the other. And there's incredible, incredible moments of loss. And again, it goes back, like, there's that suddenness, right? And how that can rock you to your core, that rocks your identity. There's a million ways that the plan goes awry. And it's really about, how you navigate those challenges and how in those moments you take all the lessons and you dig in and you dig deep and you kind of just got one foot in front of the other.
One foot in front of the other. No, I love that. I'll ask you this final question, and you may just recap. I mean, you dropped a lot of gems in there. But I'll ask you if there was a thing or two that you definitely wanted people who are tuning into this episode to take away from your Crucible moment, what would it be?
It's such a good question. I think for me, if there's anything to take away, it's that you can always reinvent yourself, right? And that even in a moment where you look in the mirror and you see, the girl. I mean, I would even say, like, for me, like, the young woman, the girl who was fired, and you can still feel the heat of that moment, right? And the pain of that. You have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, how do I want to reinvent? And I don't think that reinvention is a bad thing. There's people that are like, I am who I am. It doesn't mean that I'm not who I am. But I've always been able to say, I want to do this better, or I want to grow in this way. And that's all part of reinvention.
Yeah.
I'm constantly thinking about that. I'm constantly thinking about what 2027 looks like, right? I've been in the heat of, FIFA World Cup since 2019.
Yeah.
A different kind of heat.
Yeah.
Right? And at the end of the day, like, it ends. And it ends suddenly.
Yeah.
And, it's just like the papal visit for me, right? Pope Francis came and he took off. And as we watched the plane go into the air, there is a sense of utter relief that the plane has taken off and he is not your responsibility anymore. But that you also have that moment of, like, what's next?
What's next?
And wanting to give yourself the space to figure that out. Because a lot of tough decisions have to be made in that time frame, right? In that space. How do you re-engage your agency, your previous, like how do you re-engage family and friends who maybe haven't seen you for a bit, right? You've missed a few things.
Yeah.
How do you, take those lessons and of this incredible experience and allow them to inform what comes next?
I love that, and so I say to young people all the time, I have refused to ask young people what they want to be when they grow up.
Oh, it's the worst question.
Instead, I ask, what do you want to do? Because be is so finite,
Yeah.
and do is infinite. You can do all the things. You might not be able to do them at the same time, but you could do all the things, and I think that speaks to your lesson on reinvention, right? Change
Absolutely.
is going to come.
And you are not the same person.
You're not the same person, and that's
you
okay.
shouldn't be.
It's growth, right? Yeah.
Right?
If you are
And
the same person,
correct.
then that's the problem.
That's
So,
absolutely true. I think that's such a good way of being, because what do you want to be when you grow up is probably the worst question
It's terrible.
you can ask a child, because there's so much you can be,
yeah.
right? And there's so many roles you're going to be, and it's okay to be at a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Meg, I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure. This is, we could talk for an hour. But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
For those of you who have tuned in today, you heard it. Reinvention is okay. And in fact, it's necessary. Growth, change, those are things that you should be going through throughout your life. And when you run up on those crucible moments and they're sudden and you feel that heat pressing on, you take a second, take a breath, and keep moving forward, whatever you do. This has been a word from Meg Kane. I appreciate you all. Tune in next time to another episode of The Crucible with Jeff Marshall. Be well.
Thanks so much for watching this episode of The Crucible with Jeff Marshall. If you would like to be a guest on the program, let's be in touch. And be sure to stay connected with us through your favorite platforms. The Crucible with Jeff Marshall is part of the A Live Podcast Network and can be found in audio-only format wherever you listen to your podcasts. Production of this project was created by Gifted Entertainment, a full-service creative video production company.